Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. And I am your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to episode 252 of the podcast. And as promised in the last episode, I would share in this podcast episode foods to eat more. Now, before I get into that, let me say a happy new year. Happy 2025. This is the first episode released in 2025, and I'm very excited for all of the promise and potential that this podcast and myself, my family, my community has for 2025. However, for us to optimize every opportunity, for us to optimize our bodies, our minds, and us to operate in the best state, the healthiest state, so that we can accomplish our goals, we must be healthy. We must be healthy physically, and we must be healthy mentally. And much of our physical ailments and our mental ailments can be attributed to what we are putting on our forks, what we are eating off of our plates. And in this series that is concluding, in me discussing food, I hope that the listeners have gained some insight, have perhaps become or is becoming more thoughtful about what we're eating, thoughtful about the Food and Drug Administration, the USDA, food manufacturers, so that we can be informed and make better choices. And I hope that if you think it's necessary to go and research and fact check what I've shared with you during this food series. As I always say, it's my goal to share information that is relevant and that which I think or I know will benefit our people, our community, our families, our children, our seniors, how we serve ourselves and each other. And so what I have shared with you aims to do just that. So foods to eat more. Obviously, water. You may say it's not a food; it's a liquid, it's a beverage, but we need water. The cells in our body need water, and if we are consuming less juice, less soda, less of this sweetened processed beverages, then we should be drinking water. You know, I watch sports and I see the commercials for the so-called sports drinks that are full of dyes, that are full of sugars. And I think if you're thirsty, drink some water. Drink some water. Quench your thirst with some pure water. The fruit juices that are advertised have no meaningful amount of fruit. They're full of sugar, which makes us more thirsty, which really doesn't quench our thirst. And for us to be properly hydrated, for our body to have the hydration that it needs to function, then we have to drink water. Water is just essential to life. Our bodies are, 80% water. Our joints are 80% water. We need water so that we're not experiencing joint pain. We need water to flush the toxins from our body. Our skin needs water so that it can grow or glow. Our digestive system needs water, right? Some of us may complain or have the complaint of constipation, aside from what I'm going to talk about further in this episode. Good old water. Good old water can help relieve or prevent constipation. Our kidneys, the miraculous and majestic filtration system of our bodies, needs water. Without us being properly hydrated, dehydration can lead to kidney stones and other kidney problems that we just don't need. And what I've seen is that As women, we need 11.5 cups of water, men 15.5 cups of water, children 5 to 11 cups of water, depending on their age. Now, this does not mean that we have to sit and drink and drink and drink and drink water. Some do that. But the next food that I'm going to talk about can help us get water. But don't be just thinking about buying bottled water. There's other ways for us to have water that, I think about the beverage industry and how good it is for them that as an American culture and society, we've been indoctrinated to think, okay, I have to have so many ounces of water. And, here we are as Americans living in America, toting around these water bottles all the time, right? But you can get water from your home, and there's great filtration systems that you can get. They have the pitcher filters. We think about paying for tap water and then going out and buying water that we have brought into our homes. So think about, there's ways that we can clean up the water that comes into our house. You can boil water. You can get filtration systems at your tap. You can get filtration systems at where the water comes into our homes. But, I don't want us to think because I'm saying we need to drink so many cups or ounces of water daily that we have to have, I'm not going to name any specific brands, but that we have to walk around with these labeled bottles that we're paying for that essentially is just tap water, but they can sell it to us with a screw-on cap. But let's drink more water. Some statistics that I found was interesting is that the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, identified groups that underconsume the appropriate amount of water. That includes younger children. That includes Black children, what they say are non-Hispanic Black children. That's youth in low-income households or lower-income households. Youth whose head of household has less than a high school education. Older adults, Black adults, non-Hispanic Black adults, they say. Adults with lower income and less education, and adults with obesity. These are folks who the CDC has identified underconsume water. And I think if we, sometimes, boy, you'll be at the grocery store and you'll see people just loading their carts, especially the first of the month or close to it, loading their carts with soda. And I just think about all of that sugar. And if that sugar, those sugary drinks was replaced with water, we would be thinking better. Our bodies would feel better. We'd be moving better. And of course, again, those toxins would be flushed from our bodies. As I said, it's not just sitting and drinking cups and cups of water, but we can get water from this next food that we should eat more, and that's fresh fruit. Fresh fruit contains so much water. You think about it, an apple. You think about a peach. There's so much water in our fruit. So fruit can hydrate us. That's the benefit of getting fruit, is the hydration. Fruit is good to prevent constipation. Fruit is good to prevent high cholesterol and colorectal cancer that we know is an issue in our community. The fruit contains fiber. And fiber is so good because the way I describe fiber to my children, my sons when they were very small, when I would talk to them about why I was choosing to feed them certain foods, I would explain to them fiber like this. I would say fiber is kind of like a broom, right? We have a digestive tract, and there are things that have to keep moving, have to be eliminated. And that fiber is like the broom that sweeps us clean. So fiber is so super good for us. In addition to having fiber, which does help absorb cholesterol from other foods and regulate our blood sugar because it prevents the blood sugar spikes. So let me just pause for a second. I think this is important. When we eat, say, some cookies, right? There's no substantial fiber in cookies, right? And those cookies have sugar, high fructose corn syrup, They're ultra processed, white flour, all of that dyes, right? All of the junk that's not good for us. So we eat the cookies, and because they're predominantly sugar, our blood sugar, our blood glucose just spikes. It rockets. Well, when we eat fruit, we get sugar from the fruit, but we also get the fiber, and the fiber regulates how our blood sugars elevate because the fiber is there as a regulatory mechanism. And so that's one other reason why it's better to eat fresh fruit than it is for a snack than it is some of these processed foods, right? So the fiber in fruit is good for cholesterol, good for blood sugar. But fruit also contains essential nutrients like calcium and potassium. And fruit is a natural energy booster. I know that companies sell us these so-called energy drinks. What's in them? Well, besides sugar, there's caffeine and some other things that are created in a laboratory. Well, what about God's laboratory? We can get mangoes and apples and peaches and plums, and we can get the energy, the healthy energy that we need from our fruit instead of from a laboratory with a bunch of mystery ingredients that we know is just not good for our bodies. And I'll say, fresh fruit is good. If you can't get fresh fruit, get frozen fruit, right? But avoid so-called fruit snacks that have no fruit in them. If we can, avoid jarred fruits and get fresh fruits, that's good. But if we are going to get jarred fruits, glass jar, I would say is probably better, and certainly better than the fruit that sold to us in those little plastic cups full of the corn syrup. Corn syrup is sugar. Fruit already is made naturally with sugar. So we don't want to add sugar to our fruits. And fruit is best when it's eaten raw instead of it cooked. That way we're getting those essential nutrients without having them broke down. Fruit is so good for us. So the foods that we should eat more, water and fruit. Now let's move on. Fresh vegetables. Number 3, eat more fresh vegetables. Fresh when possible, frozen when not possible. And, some because of, everyone's circumstances are different. Some folks say, well, I'm not able to get as much fresh or frozen, and I buy canned, as long as we're getting our vegetables. And so the benefit of vegetables are similar to that of fruit, especially as it relates to the fiber, but there's also minerals like iron, there's protein, there's antioxidants. Just consider how we will take supplements. We'll pop these pills so that we can get the minerals or nutrients that we need. Well, we can just increase our intake of fresh vegetables that have those essential nutrients. And if our diets are devoid of vegetables, then we may find ourselves nutrient deficient in some of those essential things that we need so that our body is functioning with everything that it needs. Our bodies just do a lot. These machines, these amazing, amazing machines, we'll take our cars for oil changes. We'll make sure we get tires. We'll make sure we get the grade of gasoline. We won't put low grade in a car that's a luxury car because you need high grade, right? But when we come to what we're putting in our body, sometimes we put less consideration into that. But consider how nutrient dense vegetables are. And they are whole foods, meaning they're not processed. They're not refined, right? You don't have to buy a spinach or romaine lettuce or a broccoli, right? You can buy your broccoli from the fresh section at the farmer's market, at the produce store, and you don't have to read the ingredients. You already know what's in it. There's no mystery there. So let's make sure that we're eating fresh vegetables. Now, just some benefits of vegetables. I mentioned the antioxidants that are in vegetables. They're so important for our bodies. And the reason why they're important is because they're molecules that prevent cell damage. They prevent cell damage because they fight free radicals that if the levels are too high in our body, they can do harm. They can cause harm to our DNA. They can increase our risk of cancer and diabetes. So if we are eating foods that are abundant in antioxidants, we're helping keep the cells in our bodies healthy. Eating vegetables lowers our risk of heart disease, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and all these other dangerous chronic diseases that our community suffers from just too much, right? It's really frustrating how our communities can be so devoid of outlets where we can get fresh fruits and vegetables, but they will be inundated, 2 and 3 on a block where we can get chips and red juice and blue juice and so-called energy drinks and candy and cookies, but try to find some fresh spinach or some fresh lettuce or an orange or, some squash. And, sometimes we have to leave our own neighborhoods to get that. And that's criminal. It's criminal, and it is, frankly, by design. So we should make sure that we create opportunities so that we can ensure we are bringing fresh vegetables into our homes. Eating fresh vegetables, we can eat our vegetables steamed, roasted, sautéed, and raw. And try to avoid eating our vegetables fried. We need to eat less fried foods. And to make our vegetables tasty, we can learn how to incorporate different seasonings, spices, and even citrus juice. I mean, I love fresh squeezed lime on a salad instead of salad dressing. You put some dates in there, some olives in there, and you don't even need salad dressing. So there's different ways that we can dress up our vegetables without overcooking them and cooking them to death, and frying them. And I'll say, too, when possible, if we can find non-genetically modified vegetables, then that would be ideal. We can find vegetables without a lot of these terrible pesticides, that would be good. But what I will say is let's just in general consume more fresh vegetables into our diet. The number 4 food that we should eat more of is a powerful superfood, beans. Beans are so good for our heart. Beans are anti-inflammatory. Beans help fight cancer, prevent cancer. Beans are immunity boosters. They have so much fiber in them. So they too can alleviate those insulin spikes that we have when we're eating junk food. Beans can keep us feeling fuller longer. And beans are just a superfood. Aside from the high dietary content of beans, they have 15, in 1 cup of beans, you can find 15 grams of protein. Now, the recommended value of protein for adults, male and female, is about 28 to 34 grams. Just 1 cup of beans can give you 15 grams of protein. Now, remember, we don't have to go to meat to get protein. We can get protein from our beans and other vegetables, right? So if we need 28 to 34 grams of of protein, we're getting 15 grams right in a cup of beans. And then if we're thinking about the other vegetables or the fruit that we've had, we're meeting our protein consumption or needs. In addition to the great protein content, beans have 19 grams of fiber in them. something that's very important for all of us, but especially for women, especially women of childbearing age and looking to conceive and carry, bring a baby into the world. Beans are a great source of folate, 64% of the recommended daily value of folates. Beans are a great source of iron, 24% of the recommended daily value. Magnesium, something that we should be, I know a lot of folks are taking iron and magnesium supplements, but a cup of beans will give you 23% of your daily value. Beans are a superfood. In addition to, I said beans are an immunity booster, beans moderate our blood sugar, beans are anti-cancer foods, but beans also strengthen our gut health, right? I had mentioned, I think in the last episode or the one previous, about leaky gut syndrome, what happens when we're eating processed foods, ultra-processed foods, high fructose corn syrup, that sugar is, destroying the lining of our intestines. And so there are holes and things that are supposed to be contained within our gut leak into our bloodstream, right? Leaky gut syndrome. Well, beans can strengthen our guts. Beans can help our guts stay healthy. So beans, the powerful, powerful bean. And I'll say, I would recommend the navy bean. As a Muslim, I love my bean soup, bean pies. You can have bean smoothies. The powerful, powerful navy beans, you can put them in your salads. Navy beans are so good for us. And then the fifth food that we should eat more is whole wheat bread. In episode 251, I had mentioned that we should stay away from white flour. We should eat whole wheat bread. Wheat that is not stripped of the natural properties that make it good for our bodies. Not bleached wheat, not white wheat, not wheat that is loaded with sugar to make it hyper palatable. Just good, nutritious, whole wheat. And it would be really good if we learned how to make our own bread. And bread is not very, very difficult to make. But it'd be great if we learn how to bake our own whole wheat bread. This way we don't have to, play roulette with the processed breads that we get from the supermarket. Whole wheat bread is a good bread for us to eat, And so these are the foods that we should eat more. Water. We should absolutely drink more water. Make sure we're hydrating our cells so that they can do the work for us to keep us on this earth. We should eat fresh fruit, get plenty of hydration from our fruit. I was listening to an interview of this man who says that he really doesn't drink water. He just eats the fruit and the foods that has water in them. And this man is 78 or something, climbing trees and, fit as a fiddle. And he gets his water from nutrition, not so much from the bottled water that we've been conditioned to carry around with us, right? So 1, water. 2, fresh fruit. 3, fresh vegetables. So good for us, giving our cells the minerals, the nutrients that are good to stay healthy, getting the fiber that we need. 4, the beans, the superfood, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, boosting our immune system, modulating our blood sugar. And then, of course, whole wheat bread. Replacing these toxic, harmful processed foods, the meat that we eat, the fake fruit snacks and the crackers and cookies, the juices that are just full of sugar. These 5 foods are what we need to nourish our bodies. Take a look at our plates at mealtime. Make sure that we have more fruits and vegetables than we do meats, than we do processed pastas or white rice. Let's eat the foods that are the God gave us so that we can be healthy. God didn't give us cookies. We don't find cookies growing from trees or growing out of the earth, right? There's no oil trees, so that we can have that to deep fry our vegetables so that we can have them hyper palatable, right? Think about what grows and the good things that's growing for us to eat. Because I'll add, everything that grows is not good for us to eat, right? There are some things that squirrels eat that are good for squirrels, but not great for our digestive system. There are things that we feed to horses that grow that's good for them, but not ideal for us. So there are good foods that we can eat that are being grown. and those foods are not in the aisles of our supermarkets. They're in the outer sections. So let's be cognizant about what we're eating. Sometimes we'll be more apt to take the drug prescribed by our doctors for the high blood pressure, for the high cholesterol, for the weight loss, for the skin condition, for the urinary tract issues, for erectile dysfunction. We'll take the pills because we want a result, but we won't just go to the farm. We won't just go to the tree and pick the fruit. And so we have it backwards. We should be using the pharmacy, Pharmacy. We should be using the pharmacy to maintain our health. And if you want to read a great book on what we should eat, how we should prepare our foods, and how we can improve our health or maintain our health, How to Eat to Live, Book 1, and How to Eat to Live, Book 2, by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. These books give great insight. And as I said, the buzz term that I said this, I think, in the last episode, the one of the buzz terms or the new terms that we use in this modern time, this intermittent fasting. It's nice to hear folks talk about limiting how often and how much we should be eating. But this was, this book, How to Eat to Live, and the teachings of eating right. I mean, we've been getting this guidance from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad since the 1930s, and it was put into these two great books, a compilation of articles that he wrote. And if we read them and then you compare what now, modern doctors are saying, I mean, those doctors that want their patients to be healthy by eating well, not those doctors who are so focused on prescribing pills. They're talking about intermittent fasting. They're talking about eating one meal a day. They're talking about eating beans. They're talking about eating more fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. But you can find it from a black man like you, like me, a brother that was raised right here in the U.S. who learned something that is good for our people. And so, you can get that book, How to Eat to Live, Book 1, or How to Eat to Live, Book 2, and you will gain so much insight. If we want to live, then we have to eat right. If we want to feel good in our bodies, then we have to eat right. And what I've shared with you in these last several episodes can help us do just that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks audience. Let me know what you think about this episode or the prior episodes. I'm always interested in your feedback. You can leave me a comment on Apple Podcasts. You can email me at nora@noraspeaks.com. That's nora@noraspeaks.com. I always look forward to and enjoy the feedback that you share with me. Until next time, stay in peace.
We were brought here as a piece of property, and to keep that piece of property, it is to not allow the property to know the value of the property. What I mean by that, if you had known the history of yourself, you would not have been made a slave. And you won't be a slave now if you have a knowledge of yourself. It's hard to enslave a person that have equal knowledge with you. You just can't do it. And so this knowledge of yourself is the thing that will free you from what you have been suffering from.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, If you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, nouramuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@nouraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Noura Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Noura Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.